School, Cambridge. Here we have with us Amaan Shareef, a young author who recently published his first book.
Hi, I'm glad to be here with you.
I've read your book already, but before we get to the review, I have a few questions I'd like to start off with. Can you tell me about the first time that you really got to read it?
Yeah, it was a really long time ago, but I think it was in second grade when I went to a library for the first time. I was just amazed by the amount of books there, and they just drew me in like nothing had before.
Can you share a specific memory of when you first fell in love with reading? What book or moment stands out?
I think, while there were a lot of them, definitely the one about going to the library for the first time was one. But when we're talking about books, I think I really fell in love with reading with the Magic Trio series by Mary Osborne.
What aspects of reading interest you the most?
I think definitely the reading, the item, it's mostly fiction. So the imagination aspect is something that really interests me. I really like to imagine what's going on in the books. It helps me feel like I'm in a world of my own, and that's just a great experience.
If you had to choose a genre that defines your reading taste, what would it be and why?
I'd say high fantasy. And I say high fantasy because it's a type of genre that suits me perfectly. The genre is more about stuff that could never happen in real life, but at the same time with a lot of relatable aspects. They can be really not crazy, but out of this world and not really pertaining to this world anymore. And I want to imagine myself in a different world. So those really help speed up the process, and I just love the way that I'm able to imagine something.
How does this genre influence your writing?
So, as I said, it's really out of this world and quite literally. So, there's nothing that really pertains to this world. But in my writing, I like to take it in a way that it is related to this world, but at the same time, it's not set on this world. So it makes it feel a bit different.
How did your love for reading shape the plot of your current book? Did you take inspiration from any of your favorite plots?
So this book, the book that I've read, I wrote the book that I wanted to read as a younger version of myself. Like, I loved all the books that were out there, but this is the kind of book that I wanted to read and that I wasn't able to find back then. So yeah, there isn't much influence or inspiration on the plot, but I'd say that Spaced Out, a book by Stuart Gibbs, actually inspired the book in a sense, but it didn't make it, there's not so much that was drawn from it, but a few aspects were definitely taken from it.
Can you describe your writing process? Do you plan reading out first, or do you just see where the story takes you?
I'm not really good at planning. I don't plan what I'm writing. There will be a vague plan in the beginning of what I'm writing, but nothing too specific. So I'll just see where the story takes me and write according to that. And that's what I did with this one too. There are a few difficulties with it, but I think that I did a great job of dealing with it. And I think it's a good way to write a book because it leaves some room for more imagination and more creative processes.
How did you create your characters? Did you base them on real people, or are they totally from your imagination?
I didn't base my characters on anyone completely as such, but they're a combination of traits of various people I know. I took traits from like 4 or 5 people that I know and melded them into one character. So they're not really based on a single person, but they're based on a group of people.
Are there any authors' works that inspire you? What have you learned from them that you use in your writing?
There are quite a few authors that inspire me. Let's go with my favorite authors are definitely Sabra Tahir, Brandon Sanderson, and Suzanne Collins. What I've learned from them is they're all really good at world building. They're able to bring you into the plot in such a way that you feel like the world that they're writing in is real. I think I really drew inspiration on the way that they describe from their writing and use that in my writing.
Well, how do you think being a voracious reader helps you in writing?
Let's see. So, as you mentioned, I am a voracious reader, and I think it helps in my writing because when you write something, you really have to draw inspiration from stuff. Yes, the ideas are original, but without something to base yourself off on, it's really hard to write. So I think looking at the various writing styles that different authors have and seeing how different people write really helps you understand what you can write. So I think that's how being a voracious reader helps me.
How does it feel writing your first book as a young author? What challenges have you experienced?
So writing a book is really, really much more difficult than I expected it to be. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it really requires a lot of planning, which, as I mentioned before, I didn't do. And challenges-wise, I was really confused about where to go with the book some places. Like, I write a chapter in full speed, it might not take more than like 2 to 3 days. But when I'm looking at the next one, I'm confused about where I should take the characters next, what I should do. Even after planning the plot, there are still a lot of questions that you have to answer in your writing process. So it's really important that you do that.
I agree. Well, did you take inspiration from any specific sci-fi stories that led to your decision to set your story on Venus? How do you mix well-known sci-fi ideas with your own unique concepts?
Not really. I don't think I based it off any specific sci-fi stories as such. I've looked at various sci-fi stories before, like, for example, Star Wars or Star Trek. Even though these are not in the same medium, they're really something that helps understand how intergalactic or out of this world stories are written. And other fictional works, like, as I mentioned, Space Scout by Stuart Gibbs. These different sci-fi stories help me understand how sci-fi books are written, but none of them really inspired me to set my story on Venus. That was something that I decided to do. And mixing-wise, I think it just takes practice. You have to understand that you're not copying someone's idea. You're taking inspiration, and then you have to add your own ideas to it to create something new.
Well, coming to your book, the main character, Astra, she deals with a lot of self-doubt. Did you ever experience something similar while writing, and how do you overcome it?
And I just keep doing this over and over until I feel like it's good. Sometimes the original might have been better than the one that I wrote after all of these like rewriting. But I think it just comes with a lot of thinking and appreciating what you've written. So if we can appreciate this and understand what it is that you're doing, I think you can overcome your self-doubt. And that's what I tried to show in my story.
Good to know. Well, Astra's journey as a leader is marked by challenges and self-doubt. Do you think she's naturally suited for leadership, or it's something she's forced into?
I think initially she was forced into it, but over time you get to realize that she is in fact a naturally suited leader, and she's really good at taking calculated decisions and ensuring that no one gets hurt in the process. So I think though some force was required in the beginning, it's something that she grew into naturally, and now she's a good leader.
Alright. Well, what encourages her to remain a leader in the workplace with tough decisions? Tough challenges in difficult situations?
I think it's definitely her perseverance. She has an attitude where even though she doubts herself, she's like, I can do this if I try. So she tries to apply that attitude everywhere and tries to face these tough challenges with decisive actions and making sure that she does everything that she can, the best that she can.
Well, how does her inner struggle with being a leader relate to the problems the group faces? Do you think she sees leadership more as a burden or as a responsibility when it comes to making important choices?
I'll start and answer with the second one, because leadership in sport, at least in my understanding and the way I wrote it, is both a burden and a responsibility. Of course, Ashra is responsible for making these important choices, but at the same time, she feels like, what if I make a wrong decision? It's a burden on your thinking process, especially if you're doubting herself. So I think she might see it as a mix of both, but mainly responsibility. And her inner struggle with her doubt, again, with her self-doubt, is, am I making the correct decision? It's a question that she gets multiple times in the book. And I think that's something that can only be overcome when she sees it as a responsibility. And slowly through the course of the book, she got to understand that. And I think she's better suited to it after her experiences.
Alright. Well, what has writing this book taught you? What advice would you give to young authors?
So, writing this book has taught me, quite a few things. The first thing would be definitely that writing a book is not easy. Deciding a plot for a story is even harder. Ironing out the loopholes, finding problems in your own story, and then rewriting it. Everything is just a huge process. It's not something that can be done in a short span of time. Great authors take sometimes months and even years to write. and I really see why. And I think the other thing that this book has taught me is that, writing a book is not an individual process, even though the author is going to be the only author. You require the inputs of editors, people who read it, test readers, everyone. With all of these people's inputs, you're really able to understand where your book is lacking and where you have to improve it. So that's something that's really important. Advice-wise, I don't think I'm the greatest person to tell that to anyone. I'm also a young author myself. But I think it's really important to not give up anywhere along the process. It's a long one, it's arduous. You really need persistence to get through it. Sometimes you'll feel like giving up, but just don't give up. Go through with it, finish your book, finish writing, and you'll be left with something that you can really enjoy and be proud of.
Well, thank you, Amaan, for sharing your valuable advice and experiences. And that's it for today. See you all next time.